What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and we're back with a Top 10 Tuesday on a Tuesday. I know I said I was going to try to do one every week, but that obviously didn't even make it the first month of the year. That being said, I do have something that my patrons voted on a while back that I've not had a chance to do, and that is going to be my Top 10 Oozes. But considering there is a criminally small amount of Oozes in 5th edition, to the point where I'd say about half of the oozes that exists are just variant versions of already existing oozes. This is going to be my top 5 oozes. So I've picked 5. I've tried to keep things relatively simple. I'm not doing any of these reduced threat this or improved huge version of that. I'm keeping it to the base, the base gelatinous, the base oozes as they are. I have picked out 5. And we'll go through them, and then I'll tell you, why I like them and things like that. Before we do that, though, I did want to talk to you about the sponsor for today's video. The demonology of, I think it's Liar Ghost is how I would pronounce it. And you've seen me reference this once before, and this is brought to you by my good friend Phil Stone, who has a Kickstarter up right now, as you can see. It's got 32 days left. It's already blown past the original pledge goal of $500, and there's actually a volume 2 to this now. And what this is basically a book of demonology. It has all sorts of different demons, some as large as, say, the Demogorgon, some something smaller. This is Charon, the boat keeper, for the River Styx. But it actually has history and Latin writing to summon the demon, as well as a sigil for them, history of the character behind this demonology book, and then also history of the creatures involved. So as you can see here, there's a variety of different demons, sigils, summoning spells in both English and in Latin. I don't know what this is, the Cerulith, this thing here, which looks like a dragon brain thing. I love the look of that. And one last little thing is I kind of like that there's no PDF. It was designed to be, a statement piece that you can see here. It's set to come out in April of this year, so not too long of a wait, and they're $45 each. And on a personal note, Phil has had, if you're interested, I'll see if I can get it from him, but he had 8 cards in the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering set that he did art for, and another 15 cards coming out over the course of 2022. So, Demonology of Liar Ghost, link in the description below. Thank you, Phil, and let's jump into the video. Number 5. The Dragonblood Ooze. This is actually one of the newest monsters that you'll see on this list that came to us from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. It is a challenge rating 5 monster. Has a lot of what you'd expect from a typical ooze, but it also has a breath weapon, which is pretty cool, something we don't often see with an ooze in the slime breath, right? 30-foot cone, dexterity saving throw, or take acid damage. And be pulled up to 30 feet towards the ooze, right? Because it's basically spraying out its mass as a gelatinous object, hits you, and then pulls you to it. On a success, you take half, and you aren't pulled. It says, magic-minded artisans have long incorporated dragon bodies into magic items and whatnot. Alchemists have found beneficial uses for dragon blood, but ill-advised experiments can lead to the creation of things like dragon blood oozes. So it also understands Draconic and the languages of its creator, but it can't speak. And then again, it's pretty. You're going to see a lot of things like pseudopod attacks, spider climb, amorphous resistances, and condition immunities. That's going to be stuff you're going to see across the board. But this does have a larger armor class in 14 and 68 hit points. So this thing can take a little bit of a beating. And the first time that your party encounters an ooze that shoots a breath weapon that sucks them in, it very much reminds me of the Blob from the titular movie The Blob. Wrapping people and pulling them in. And it has a kind of pinkish color to it, which kind of also lends to that. It's just something different, and you could obviously build a whole interesting story around the concept of this crazy alchemist who developed this. Number 4. The Oblex, or in this particular instance here, the Elder Oblex, one of the most interesting oozes out there. This one obviously having that whole concept, as you can see in the image, where they're able to devour people and then duplicate their appearance in gelatinous form. Or oozy form here. So again, you'll see a lot of different things. Actually, a lot more intelligence, right? 22 intelligence on an Elder Oblex, right? There's different tiers But this is one of, excuse me, one of the smartest, most intelligent oozes you will come across. We see Amorphous. It does have an aversion to fire. That's something a little bit different for this ooze. It also has innate spellcasting. I assume that this is going to be adjusted in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse, which actually have that book upstairs. I didn't think to bring it down for this. But you can see it does have innate spellcasting, at least in the original version. Sulfurous Impersonation as a bonus action. It can extrude a piece of itself that assumes the appearance of a medium or smaller creature whose memories it's stolen. Then it talks a little bit here about the simulacrum. Appears, feels, and sounds exactly like the creature, though it smells of sulfur. And it can impersonate 2d6 plus 1 different creatures, each one tethered to its body by a strand of slime that can be up to 120 feet away. So that's the telltale sign, right? The trail of slime tether attaching it to the main Oblex proper. Multi-attack, it has obviously pseudopod attacks, but it also has this eat memory ability, which is kind of what makes it unique. Targets one creature within 5 feet. They must make a wisdom save or take 8d10 psychic damage, and have their memory drained until they finish a short or long rest or are hit with greater restoration or heal. Construct oozes planted undead make the save automatically. While memory drained, the target must roll a d4 and subtract the number rolled from any ability check or attack roll it makes. Each time the target is memory drained beyond the first, the die size increases, d6, d8, until it becomes a d20, at which point the target becomes unconscious for an hour. When an Oblex causes a target to become memory drained, it learns all the languages the target knows and gains all their proficiencies except for saving throws. And then again, it says basically Mind Flayers have created these as... Mind Flayers have created a lot of the weird Underdark races by experimenting on things. As such, slimes and jellies, puddings, and so on have led to the Mind Flayer developing the Oblex, a slime capable of assaulting the minds of other creatures. That makes sense. Eating of memories, eating of brains, Mind Flayers transitions over into the Oblex. And again, and it says newly formed ones, as you can see here, don't have the same capabilities as the older ones. Until they get bigger and continue to feed on memories, they will eventually become what we see in this really epic piece of art. Number 3. The Slithering Tracker. And this one gets on the list because of the really interesting lore behind it, because I also feel like this was very easily overlooked. I think this was a Volo's monster originally, and I felt was very easily overlooked. And perhaps, again, in Mordenkainen's, it's received an update, and there'll be even more to discuss. Unfortunately, though, we know we won't have them here available on D&D Beyond until sometime in May, and it sounds like now D&D Beyond is going to have 2 different versions, the old version and the new version. Rather than going in and updating every single monster, they're just going to upload new ones, so you'll be able to flip between the two, which I'm sure will make a lot of people happy. Anyway, it is vulnerable to cold and fire damage, something we don't see, double vulnerability. Obviously, a ton of condition immunities. It says advantage on attack rolls if it surprises someone. And while grappling a creature, it takes only half the damage. The other half is dealt to the creature. It remains motionless. It's indistinguishable from a puddle, which can also make for very interesting ambush-style encounters if you need something like that. It has advantage on wisdom checks to track its prey, because again, it is a tracker, and we'll get to that in a second. It can kind of go amorphous, climb walls, and it has advantage on stealth checks in water, as it does look like a puddle. Unlike the other oozes that have pseudopod attacks, this one has a slam attack, and then it also has life leech. One large or smaller creature that it can see within 5 feet must make a dex save or be grappled. Until the grapple ends, they're grappled and restrained, and they are also unable to breathe, unless they can breathe in water, and they take 3d10 necrotic damage at the start of each of their turns. But I really like the first couple of lines here, right? The quest for revenge sometimes leads one to undergo a ritual whereby they transform into a body of semi-liquid sentience known as a Slithering Tracker. Innocuous and insidious at the same time, a tracker flows into places where a normal creature can't go and brings its own brand of watery death down upon its quarry. It says the ritual is known to hags, liches, priests who worship gods of vengeance, and so on. So this could be a very interesting concept, right? This could also be really fun or weird if your party has like some villain or NPC, probably not the big bad, but like an NPC who ends up becoming like stops the party or kills one of the party members, and you kind of like let them come back as a Slithering Tracker. That's something I don't think I've ever heard anybody do, but basically that quest for vengeance basically causes your body to turn into this primordial ooze creature, which his whole purpose is to track down whatever their target is and end them. That also could happen in the reverse, where a Slithering Tracker is coming after the party because they killed someone, and then now you have to deal with either defeating it or finding a way to stop it from coming back. Number 2. The Psychic Gray Ooze variant from the Monster Manual. Now, this is technically a variant, but it is largely a gray ooze, just with a couple bits of extra abilities, like a little more intelligence. And it was described right in the Monster Manual that certain gray oozes have the capability to gain more sentience and even limited psionic abilities if they manage to live for a long time. And that's what you'll see here in the fact that it has 6 intelligence. Again, it has corrode metal, amorphous, things that are pretty standard for the original oozes from the Monster Manual, false appearance, pseudopod attack, but this one's unique ability is its psychic crush ability. It targets one creature it can sense within 60 feet. They must make a DC 10 intelligence saving throw, taking 3d6 psychic damage on a failed save or half on a success. Again, they are challenge rating 1/2, but that would be a great way to shake up your intro adventurers by thinking they see a gray ooze and then all of a sudden it assaults their brain with psychic damage. Definitely, I think that's going to make for a memorable encounter. Number 1. Probably surprising no one is the classic Gelatinous Cube. Not only is it now become classic and synonymous with Dungeons & Dragons, appearing in a variety of different things like Disney's Onward, I believe they've been in Adventure Time, there's all sorts of different minis and plushies and, you know, all sorts of things. I think Funko Pops and whatnot of the Gelatinous Cube. It's just classic, and I'm a big fan. I mean, it is literally just a cube of Jell-O that corrodes and eats stuff as it gets in contact with it, right? So it takes up this whole 10-foot space. A creature within the cube can use an action to try to pull another creature out. But they take acid damage whenever they're touching it. It is completely transparent, which is something that I feel like a lot of people ignore, but it takes a successful DC 15 Wisdom Perception check to spot a cube if it's not moving or attacking. So great ways to throw gelatinous cubes at your party to have it be difficult is have it be in a dark hallway, where again, reminder that even if you have dark vision, you're just seeing things with disadvantage. It's in dim, like darkness becomes dim light. So dim light is disadvantage on perception checks. So if that's a -5 to a passive perception check, it's very possible that they could walk into, I mean, you're going to feel the cube once they touch it, but that's an option. Another one is underwater, right? A clear, transparent cube in clear water is very hard to find. It will be an easy way to, the way out of this water trap or whatever the party is in is through a tunnel, but the tunnel is a gelatinous cube. So you can either stay in the other room and drown or try to fight/swim your way through a gelatinous cube. And I think that could also be an interesting encounter. And it obviously has a pseudopod attack, and then its big claim to fame is the engulf ability, right? It can enter a larger, smaller creature's space. Whenever the cube enters that space, they must make a dex save. On a success, they can be 5 feet away. And on a failure, they're subsumed into the cube. They take acid damage. They are engulfed. They can't breathe. They're restrained. And they take 66 acid damage at the start of each of the cube's turns. When it moves, the engulfed creature moves with it. And they can try and escape with a DC 12 strength check. On a success, the creature escapes and enters a space of its choice within 5 feet. So, yeah, I love gelatinous cubes. I did have 2 kind of runner-ups to put on this list, and I'll show you them right now. One of them is a gelatinous cube, and that is Globagool. One, because I love the name, but it's also because it is a sentient and, just curious gelatinous cube found in Out of the Abyss, which is a campaign that I got to play through to the end, so I have a little bit of nostalgia for it. But yeah, Dewey Blex made him sentient when she arrived, and he's just super chill and just wants to hang out and chat with people and figure out what's going on. And I really like that. And the other one would be the White Maw from Dead in Thay, which is just a gargantuan size ooze that does ridiculous amounts of damage. And it's basically the red wizards experimented on a gray ooze and gave one a sentience of intelligence of 12 and made it gargantuan size. And it can eat it through 2-inch thick non-magical metal in 1 round. So, yeah. Any creature that starts this turn in its space is targeted by a pseudopod attack if it isn't incapacitated. It's pretty cool, but again, it is just a larger version of a gray ooze. So, thank you all so much for watching, trying to bring back this Top 10 Tuesdays. I've been thinking, obviously I still have more that my patrons and stuff have voted on or will be voting on. So once again, I'll say this right now. Thank you again to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me in the channel. I've been working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes to try and really beef up what goes on with Patreon. I'm thinking about, I used to upload my DM notes. I haven't DM'd in a while, and I used to upload my player notes. I want to get back into doing that. And then I also want to get into putting out content like magic items or other things on there, which they would get as part of the Patreon, and then eventually revamping my website and possibly releasing PDFs on there. But I also wanted to ask all of you, if you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. But I was thinking about revisiting my magic items series, where I did the top 10 magic items for all of the different classes. I had done those in the past, and a lot of magic items have come out since then, and a lot of different subclasses have come out since then, so things that people would want for those classes are pretty different. But I was curious what your thoughts were. Would you be at all interested in me revisiting that? That would mean for the next, 13 weeks, I would be doing a different top 10 of magic items for a specific class. Promise Boots of Flying won't be on all of them. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Maybe I'll do a poll at some point. And lastly, a big shout out and thank you again to Phil for sponsoring this video. And be sure to go check out the Demonology of Liar Ghost, which is a really cool book. And again, I really like the fact that it's designed to be a physical aid at the table. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.